Rain hammered against the enormous glass windows of billionaire Ethan Blackwood's mansion as another maid hurried out the front door, tears streaming down her face. She was the seventh maid to quit, or rather, be fired, in less than a month. Every one of them had given the same excuse: "I can't do this anymore." But none of them ever explained what this really meant. The mansion was spotless, the salary was extraordinary, the benefits were unbelievable. So why did everyone leave? Even Ethan himself didn't fully understand. Then one evening, after installing hidden security cameras to discover the truth, he watched something that made his blood run cold. His new maid was sitting on the floor beside his autistic 8-year-old son. She wasn't cleaning. She wasn't working. She was silently spinning a small blue toy in circles, exactly the same way his son did. Minutes later, his son smiled, for the first time in over 3 years. Ethan couldn't breathe. Before we continue this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness of Power for more inspiring stories that touch the heart. And don't forget to tell us in the comments, which city and country are you watching from? We'd love to know where our amazing viewers are around the world. Ethan Blackwood was known throughout the business world as a ruthless billionaire. He built one of the country's largest technology companies from nothing, negotiating billion-dollar deals before breakfast and crushing competitors before lunch. People admired his intelligence, they feared his determination, but nobody saw the lonely man behind the expensive suits. 5 years earlier, Ethan had lost his wife, Claire, in a tragic car accident. The grief nearly destroyed him. The only thing keeping him alive was their son, Noah. Noah had been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder when he was 3. He rarely spoke. He avoided eye contact. Unexpected sounds overwhelmed him. Changes in routine often triggered emotional meltdowns. Claire had understood Noah perfectly. She knew every tiny signal, every favorite song, every texture that calmed him, every quiet way he communicated without words. When she died, it was as though half of Noah disappeared with her. And Ethan? He buried himself in work because he didn't know how to reach his own child. He hired specialists, therapists, teachers, caregivers, the best doctors money could buy. But every professional eventually admitted the same painful truth. Noah doesn't need another expert. He needs someone who truly sees him. Ethan never understood what that meant. To him, providing the best care meant solving the problem, fixing it, finding the right person. Instead, each caregiver lasted only days. Some became frustrated, some were frightened by Noah's meltdowns, others simply couldn't connect with him. Eventually, Ethan hired full-time maids to help maintain the household while also keeping Noah company. 7 came. 7 left. Some cried. Some looked exhausted. One even whispered before leaving, "Your son isn't difficult. He's lonely." Those words haunted Ethan, but he dismissed them. Lonely? Noah had everything. A beautiful home, every toy imaginable, the best schools, the finest medical care. What else could a child possibly need? Then came Maria. She arrived carrying only one small suitcase and wearing simple clothes that looked years old. She wasn't young, she wasn't glamorous, she didn't have glowing recommendations from elite agencies. In fact, her resume was surprisingly ordinary. She had spent years caring for elderly patients in a small town. Before that, she had worked in a public library. No prestigious experience, nothing impressive. Ethan almost rejected her immediately, but something about her calm eyes reminded him of Claire. Not because they looked alike, because they carried the same quiet patience. "You understand my son's condition?" Ethan asked during the interview. Maria smiled gently. "I understand children. Autism?" "I've never worked with a child diagnosed with autism." Ethan frowned. "So you're inexperienced?" "No," she answered softly. "I simply don't believe children should be introduced to me by their diagnosis." The answer irritated him. She sounded philosophical, not practical. Still, he was running out of candidates. "You'll start tomorrow." Her first morning surprised everyone. Instead of rushing to organize the mansion, Maria asked only one question. "May I meet Noah first?" The head housekeeper looked confused. "Breakfast needs preparing. It can wait 5 minutes." When Maria quietly entered Noah's room, he was sitting in the corner, lining up colorful toy cars in perfect order. Most adults immediately interrupted him. They greeted him loudly, asked questions, touched his shoulder. Maria did none of those things. She simply sat several feet away, silent, waiting. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. She never spoke, never forced interaction, never even looked directly at him. Finally, without warning, Noah slid one tiny red car toward her. The housekeeper gasped. "He never shares." Maria gently rolled the little car back. Nothing more, nothing less. No words, no praise, no excitement, just understanding. That afternoon, something even stranger happened. Noah voluntarily stayed in the kitchen while Maria baked bread. He didn't help. He didn't speak. He simply watched. She quietly described every step. "I'm adding flour. Now the water. Listen." She tapped the wooden bowl softly. The sound changes. Noah leaned closer. By evening, he was following her through the garden, still silent, but present. When Ethan returned home late that night, the staff greeted him with confused expressions. "Sir, you should see Noah." Expecting another disaster, Ethan hurried upstairs. Instead, he found Noah peacefully sleeping with his favorite blanket. No tears, no signs of stress, no destroyed toys, nothing. It had been months since bedtime happened so peacefully. The following days became even more mysterious. Noah began eating foods he had refused for years. He spent time outside. He slept through the night. The violent meltdowns became less frequent, yet Maria never used expensive therapy techniques. She never raised her voice. She never rewarded him with gifts. She simply stayed with him, listened, waited. One afternoon, Ethan asked, "What exactly are you doing?" Maria smiled. "I'm learning his language." "He doesn't speak." "Oh, he speaks all the time. You just haven't learned how to listen yet." Those words hit Ethan harder than any boardroom criticism ever had. Still, he remained skeptical. Surely there had to be another explanation. Maybe this was coincidence. Maybe Noah was simply going through a temporary phase. So Ethan made a decision, without telling anyone. He installed hidden security cameras throughout the house. Not because he suspected Maria of stealing, but because he wanted to discover her secret. He expected to uncover some professional technique, some psychological trick, some carefully practiced routine instead. Late one evening, as he reviewed the footage alone in his office, he saw something that completely shattered everything he believed about parenting. And what Maria did next would change both Ethan's and Noah's lives forever. The security footage showed nothing extraordinary at first. Maria folded, laundry prepared meals, watered the flowers. Everything looked perfectly ordinary. Then, the camera in Noah's playroom caught something Ethan never expected. Noah was sitting on the floor, spinning his favorite blue toy in slow circles, completely absorbed in the movement. Instead of interrupting him or trying to redirect his attention, Maria quietly sat several feet away. She reached into her apron pocket, pulled out a small wooden button, and gently spun it across the floor in exactly the same rhythm as Noah's toy. She didn't ask him to stop. She didn't tell him to play normally. She entered his world instead of forcing him into hers. For nearly 20 minutes, they sat there in complete silence, spinning their little objects together. Then something remarkable happened. Noah looked at Maria, not just for a second. He truly looked at her. It was the longest eye contact Ethan had ever seen his son make with anyone since Claire had died. A lump formed in Ethan's throat. Moments later, Maria softly whispered, "Thank you for letting me join your game." Noah smiled. It wasn't a huge smile. It wasn't dramatic. But to Ethan, it felt brighter than the sunrise. He replayed the footage over and over, trying to understand what he had witnessed. Then another recording began. Noah suddenly became overwhelmed by the sound of thunder outside. His breathing quickened. He covered his ears and rocked back and forth. Every previous caregiver would have rushed over, trying desperately to calm him with words or by touching. Maria did neither. She quietly dimmed the lights, closed the curtains, placed Noah's weighted blanket beside him. Then she sat nearby and began humming. The same lullaby Claire used to sing. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. How did she know that song? The melody was one Claire had made up herself. Ethan had never mentioned it to anyone. The next morning, he confronted Maria in the garden. "Where did you learn that lullaby?" Maria looked surprised. "I didn't. You sang my wife's song." She smiled sadly. "It isn't only your wife's song. My grandmother sang it to me when I was little." Ethan stood, speechless. Sometimes, the world created connections no amount of wealth could explain. He hesitated before asking another question. "Why do you never force Noah to change?" Maria looked toward the little boy who was carefully watching butterflies near the roses. "Because he isn't broken. He experiences the world differently. When everyone keeps trying to fix you, eventually you begin believing you need fixing." She paused before continuing. "But when someone accepts you first, that's when real growth begins." Those simple words pierced Ethan's heart for years. He had measured Noah's progress by how closely he resembled other children. He celebrated fewer meltdowns, more words, more eye contact. He never celebrated Noah simply for being Noah. That realization filled him with guilt. That evening, Ethan entered Noah's room without his phone for the first time in years. He sat quietly on the carpet. No meetings, no emails, no distractions, only silence. Noah didn't react immediately, but after several minutes, he rolled a green toy car toward his father, the same quiet invitation he had once offered. Ethan picked it up carefully. He rolled it. Back, nothing more, nothing less. Noah looked at him and smiled. Tears blurred Ethan's vision. He finally understood. His son had been reaching out all along. Ethan simply hadn't known how to answer. Over the following months, the mansion changed in ways no one expected. The television was no longer constantly playing in the background. Quiet corners filled the house. Bright, overwhelming lights were replaced with softer ones. The dining room became a place for peaceful family meals instead of rushed conversations. Most importantly, Ethan began coming home before sunset. Business partners complained. Some investors questioned his priorities. He surprised them all with the same response. "I spent years building a company. I'm finally building a family." His employees noticed another change as well. The ruthless billionaire who once demanded perfection became unexpectedly compassionate. Parents with autistic children received flexible schedules. The company introduced sensory-friendly workspaces, mental health support, expanded scholarships for children with developmental differences were established across the country. When reporters asked what inspired such dramatic changes, Ethan always smiled. "My greatest teacher never spoke many words." News outlets praised his generosity, but Ethan knew the truth. None of those changes would have happened without a woman carrying one worn-out suitcase. One afternoon, while organizing old family photographs, Maria found a picture of Claire holding a toddler Noah. She quietly placed it on the living room table. Ethan picked it up and whispered, "She would have loved to meet you." Maria smiled gently. "I think she already has." He looked confused. She pointed toward Noah, who was laughing in the backyard as colorful leaves floated around him. "Every time he smiles, a piece of her is still here." Months later, Ethan offered Maria a salary far beyond anything she had ever imagined. She politely declined. "I don't need more money. I only ask for one promise." "Anything," Ethan replied. "When Noah grows older, never let anyone convince him that being different makes him less valuable." Ethan nodded with tears in his eyes. "I promise." Years passed. Noah slowly found his own way of communicating. He discovered a remarkable talent for painting. His artwork, filled with vibrant colors and extraordinary detail, touched everyone who saw it. At his first public exhibition, hundreds of guests gathered to admire his paintings. One canvas stood apart from all the others. It showed a little boy sitting on the floor beside two adults. One was a woman, holding a small spinning toy. The other was a man rolling a green car across the floor. Above them stretched a brilliant sunrise. The title of the painting read, "The Day They Entered My World." Ethan couldn't hold back his tears. He realized that the masterpiece wasn't painted with brushes alone. It had been painted through patience, acceptance, kindness, and unconditional love. As the applause echoed through the gallery, Ethan quietly turned toward Maria. "Thank you," he whispered. She shook her head. "No, thank you for finally seeing your son." If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Kindness of Power, like this video, and share it with someone who believes kindness can change lives. Sometimes the greatest miracle isn't changing another person. It is changing the way we choose to love them. Because in the end, the richest people are not those with the biggest fortunes. They are the ones who learn that understanding another heart is the greatest treasure of all.